Good morning, excellent afternoon, fantastic evening. This is Carla from Rehan Allahwala's World of Connections, and I am here to speak with Wafa Kahn, originally from Pakistan, but she's living in the UAE now, and I don't remember the name of the city. She'll tell us. And we are here to talk about her experience speaking English, teaching English, because this is not only from Rehan Allahwala's World. I am interviewing her as the Minister for English Literacy for the Insan Party in Pakistan. Having said that, I want to remind you that this show is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace one conversation at a time. Will you please introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you so much, Carla. Right, my name is Wafa Kahn, as you've mentioned that, and I live in the UAE, but I'm from Pakistan. But UAE is my home, where I've actually been born and brought up. So it's like living in an international community. This place is where I learned how to, there are so many different types of English people speak, because people come from different places. But as a profession, I chose teaching, and I'm an educationist for about 20 years. While I was working on my education and on my career, I got into NLP. I became a basic NLP practitioner. Absolutely love the concept. It really gave life to what I think I was doing. And now I'm a certified life coach. But simultaneously, I worked on my teaching diploma, which was being a certified English language teacher. For 5 years, I've been doing that. And I think that was the best step ever, the best investment ever I did on myself. Yeah, and I'm a mother of 4 boys. 2 of them are teenagers. And I've got 2 who are 10 and 6. So yeah, pretty busy.
Very busy. Do you know that I have a show for kids every Sunday night at, it would be 8:30 your time, at 9:30 Pakistan time. That is just for people who are 20 years old and younger.
Really? I didn't know that.
And we all speak in English, whether they want to or not.
Wow.
So your kids would fall into that.
Yes.
That program very, very easily. It would be wonderful to have them.
I would love to. Would love that they get into this. And I think they sure would have a nice experience.
Most kids have a lot of fun doing that. I have some very cute 6-year-old kids who come. Wait a minute, this is about you. Let's get back to you. So you said you were an NLP coach. What does that mean, and what is NLP?
NLP, I got introduced to NLP in the last 10 years of my life. And I didn't know that there was something like this. It was just a program where you understand how your mind works. And we all know that our mind consists of subconscious and conscious mind. A pattern that they've seen and observed how people stay successful and work on themselves. So when I got to know that, I thought, we all want to be successful. We all want to think differently. So N stands for neuro, L stands for linguistic. Linguistic, that's, it's the language, what language speaks of the brain, what language does our brain speak? And then P stands for program. So it was like how to understand your mind. And I absolutely love the concept. I saw that once you start seeing things a bit differently, the perception changes. And when your perception changes, your mind and body starts accepting it. And that's how, learning happens. Once you start accepting something, you start learning. And I found it really interesting. It was challenging at first, but it's just like anything you do. It's like anything you practice every day. I would have to practice NLP every day to basically master it. So yeah, that's what NLP is all about.
How do you reprogram the mind?
Very good question, Carla. I think the key to everything is awareness. And the more you get aware of how and what things are, the more you try and understand it. Like, I'm in the UAE, and you wouldn't know how UAE is about, or just like how you are in the US, and I wouldn't know how US is. But connecting and knowing about it, asking questions, discovering a little bit more by, getting in touch, connection, you get to know about things. And the more you get to know about things, you get the awareness. And when you get the awareness, your brain starts accepting it. And that's how you start reprogramming it. It all starts with the intent as well. You got to have the intent to that you're willing to adopt it. So that's how I see it.
Okay. I believe that everyone thinks a little differently and uses words a little differently. How does NLP help the person begin to feel better about themselves? As you're growing up, you're told, don't do that, that's not good, or do this. And maybe the child's an artist and doesn't want to become a doctor, or doesn't want to become a teacher. How does NLP help the child get through, or any person get through life?
I think oh, sorry about that. We've got children at the background. NLP basically tells you about, our mind is much more capable of how much we are using it. So we only use the 10% of our brain most of the time, but we're not using the rest of it. And we are way much more capable than, what we think we are. And we limit ourselves. Usually we limit ourselves by thinking, I can't do it. And when it comes to even a language, we say, I can't do it. It's a very hard language. I can't achieve this goal. And we speak those sentences or those words to ourselves. By just changing certain things in our life, it's the way we think, the words that we use, or even challenging yourself to try something new, like, brushing your teeth instead with using your right hand. Try it with your left hand. Your brain gets activated. It learns that, yes, it is capable of. The other day, my right arm was hurting a lot. I just couldn't use it. And I was like, oh, I can't really get it to do my, the things I usually do using my right arm, like writing, cooking and mixing stuff and, flipping pages. But the more I used my left arm to write, I discovered so much about myself, Carla, that I was like, I am capable of doing it. It brought a positivity into me. And NLP asks you to try something different from what you've been doing. And we just don't do that. So I feel like using the right language, the empowering language, replacing it, speaking so well to yourself is the initial part that you work on and you achieve it.
So let's say you're many times when people come to my English show, they say, I cannot speak English. And they
Oh,
say it. I mean, I'm saying it kind of sarcastically, but they say it beautifully and they can speak it. How can I help someone stop saying I cannot and flip it to I can? And I do discuss this all the time. All the time.
Yes. When you say you can or you cannot, they're right, because you're speaking to your brain. You know, what you're saying is what you're accepting it. How about just trying and say differently, I can do it. At the end of my lesson, every unit, I try and get my students to say, I can write an email. I can understand the timetable. I can write sentences with using and in the middle. You know, when they start saying that, they do it at first consciously, but then subconsciously, they're repeating it to themselves, which just stays in their mind, and then they don't know they're reprogramming it by just saying it. So after each lesson, when we recap stuff, you know, we just go through I can. So I usually try and say, so if my students are Arabic language speakers, and then they say it, so I get them to say it a little bit in Arabic and then, of course, in English as well. Subconsciously, they're reprogramming their mind, and when they're doing that, it starts. You know, you create wonders by changing your language. So hopefully that works with you as well, Carla. You know,
can you give me more of an example of how to make the change? I mean, I say that all the time to them. And then they come back and say, I feel a little confident, but I still cannot speak English. And I'm like, please don't say that to me. Because using that word not keeps you from doing something. So how can I help people learn to take that word out of their vocabulary and say, I can or I will?
I usually give my students my example. So English is not my first language. All right. I'm a bilingual, and I speak the language, like I speak 5 languages.
Wow.
I think to understand is like, when you know about their language, I know about Arabic, and when I know what Arabic brings, so by explaining what the language or the how they speak, you understand how their culture is, or how their approach is towards things, and this actually helps you understand, like, probably they say this in English is because they are translating it first. They know this, they say the sentence in their own language, and then they translate it into English. So they're saying this because of it's in their own language. One, that is the key to understanding that. 2 is reinforcing it again and again. The more we reinforce it, the more we practice, that is the best thing to do. Even I speak 5 languages, but if I stop speaking now the way I should be speaking, it changes. I start thinking the same way in my own language, and it naturally comes out like that. So first approach, I would say, is basically, you know, reinforcing it again and again in every lesson. You know, so what are we talking about? What words, you know, are we going to use the most of the time? So I can or I will, reinforcing it again and again, trying and asking them, how can you rephrase it positively, not use a negative, in negative format? And I think they would work.
How long does it take to change that way of thinking?
Wow.
Does
It
it
could,
take years?
it,
Because our bodies are always changing. It's really possible to make that change.
it's very much possible, Carla, to bring that change. But at the same time, I think it depends on the student. It depends on the person. How willing are they? How capable are they? And I think it's all about experience. Like when we experience things in different languages. So we've got those 4 skills of reading, writing, speaking, and listening. The 5th skill is about thinking. If they start thinking the way in a different language or the way we introduce things to them, I think it starts working wonders. The time they start thinking in that format, I think that's when the change happens. It can take, I can't put it into numbers, but I would say, but it does happen.
Can you give me an example where you taught someone and you saw a change? Don't mention names, but.
Yes, definitely. I recently tutored a student, a 20-year-old, and who was already getting tutored by someone else. But what he came to me was because he wasn't experienced the change in what he wanted. So I was only given 10 lessons with him. And within the second lesson, or within those 10 lessons, on the second day, he said, I'd like to have many more lessons with you because I find that you've triggered what I wanted in learning. So you've got me to think the way I want to think now. That helps me in learning and language. And I think that's when I realized that willingness to learn more is what made him he wants to get to where his goal is. So that's where I found for him, it might be the second lesson, but for others, it could be more.
Okay, let's say I came to you the first time or meeting, and you asked me about my house, and my house is right now a studio apartment. When you think of the word house, what do you think of?
A beautiful wooden house with the trees around it and flowers and bushes.
Is it a single family house?
It is a family house, yes.
How many bedrooms?
I would say 4 to 5.
And a kitchen, of course.
Yes.
And a living room. What else is in the house? Tell me what's in the house.
There's a parking area in the house, right there.
In the house?
Not in the house. I'm just still going in the house. So
Let's talk about in the house.
So there's the staircase that takes you up to the rooms. There are 2 rooms upstairs. You've got 2 rooms downstairs. There's a tiny little room just right at the entrance on the side. After, there's a living room. There's a backyard. Yeah. So of course, the toilet as well.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah. Toilet. But even in places in Pakistan and India, there are no toilets. And when they're thinking about a house, what do they imagine?
A courtyard and 2 rooms, maybe, and a toilet outside.
And isn't that very different from what you just described?
It is quite different. Yes, absolutely different.
I I hope I'm not being too hard on you.
No, you're not. And thank you for breaking that up, because like I said before, it's all about the experience you get. Because I come with a different experience. So does each student who comes to learn comes with a different experience. And the more we get aware of what we have around ourselves, the more we learn about, oh, so that's what they're talking about. You know, that's what the expectations is, or this is what it means when I say this. So everything starts with the awareness. But again, are we, as teacher, I would say, am I aware of my students when I am there to teach them? The more I'm aware of where they're coming from, what language they speak, because one of the language that my husband speaks, and I've learned that language now, it sounds pretty harsh. It might sound a little bit like hard language, but you know, they don't mean it like, it's just the way it comes out. And when you say in Arabic, there might be not a please word in Arabic. That's why probably most of the students find it hard to use it. But when you reinforce something and bring the awareness, these are the magical words that we use, and that's how English is spoken, and this is what it is, I think they get the right picture of what they're learning.
And if they're getting the right picture, what happens?
And also they need to see why are they learning a different language?
Okay, so what is the right picture that you're talking about?
Everybody comes in with a different picture, Carla.
Okay.
Everybody comes in with a different picture, and there's no wrong picture. Everybody has the right picture for themselves. And when two people speak together and they understand, it could be your instructor, your student, anybody, when they speak, you connect at a point where you find that it's the common point, and that's where it all begins. And as an instructor, my job would be to help and elevate from the point they are on, and then they develop their picture, bring some clarity into their thoughts, thinking pattern. Like I said before, we learn the 4 skills in English, but at the same time, we need to start thinking a little bit differently. When we start thinking a little bit different, that's the 5th skill. When we start thinking like that, or in a different way, you get the right perception to things. It's a global village. It's a big world. We connect from different places. That's how it works.
Now, I agree. Now, knowing that we're making that connection, how can we be sure that what we are communicating to each other makes sense? You know, it was funny. I was talking to someone who was a second language speaker, and I was trying to explain a concept. And there were 2 ways of looking at the concept. And one way was a very vast way, and one way is a very closed manner based on what has been taught to them. How do you help someone expand that knowledge without them feeling, oh, she thinks I'm stupid? That's not the point.
Again, like you said, using the right language initially we were talking about, we're using the positive language always, because whatever the student is coming from, is right. We're just here to expand it. One of the things that we do, we read a lot. So pick up excerpts from the different books. When you read about it, like in my last lesson with one of my students, we read about 10 facts around the world. And I had no idea that how many ants were there in the world, the total number of ants. The more we read, the more you know about it. So he started telling me, yeah, I know this. I know for sure that this happens. And I was like, I didn't know about that. And I think we have to share a common ground where your student teaches you as well something and you learn something from them too. It's not in the Asian, how we were educated was we were painted the picture that the teacher teaches and the teacher knows everything.
Right.
First of all, the teacher does not know everything. She's only or he or she is only a facilitator. They facilitate you with things.
Right.
So I would say, like, okay, so the words that you're using here, they're called comparatives. I know that. I would facilitate the language that he needs to use. And I show him the path, right? This is how we use it. You could find more comparatives if you search on Google. We get a nice, good list about it. Facilitate them with different things. I don't know everything, except the fact that, I am, as a human, learning from you as well. But I'm here to help you achieve your target, where you want to achieve, and I know enough about it that I can help you to do it.
So how do you do that?
Just we read, pick up language, anything we read about it, develop our listening by watching a documentary, you learn something from there. So you're working on anything that you learn you're experiencing. I feel like you're experiencing everything from reading, listening. In these two areas, you learn a lot of things. I try and focus that my students need to train on these two areas. While you're living your life, you're basically learning from your surroundings. So how about you switch on, instead of watching news in Urdu, how about try and switch your news a little bit into English? I'm not familiar with that. That's why here. I can't do it. I don't understand what they say. I know you don't understand it. How about you just try and listen it for some time? Or have you tried watching your favorites, a drama or a movie, Spider-Man into it? And yeah, Spider-Man's good. So when they watch the movie Spider-Man, they don't understand most of that, what the Spider-Man's saying, but they pick up the language. They get aware about it. The more they watch, the more they get the exposure to it, the more I think it gets easier.
Do you think that the students learn by practice and speaking more than reading and writing?
I think they should be speaking and listening more than reading and writing. Unfortunately, the way I've seen is they can write a lot, but they don't know what they're writing. They can read, but they don't know what they're reading. But reading does not happen as much. So you get to, they need to be speaking a lot more, thinking a lot more in English as well, and listening to English too.
And how can we help them learn to listen better?
They don't want to change to what they're doing. So I get them to just like, have you watched the new movie? Something they're interested in. Nobody wants to take out time to, go and listen to English or have an hour of English time. No, just try and replace something like, have you watched the new movie? How about this news? What does it say in English? Have you tried and done that? I think our lessons need to be a bit 100% English, and they discover that when we start translating, which usually happens in our classes, is they start translating that a lot more than they speak English there. That shouldn't be the case. They should be speaking a lot more English, listening a lot more English content, understanding that there are different accents in the world, just like how there are different accents of Urdu and Hindi. So once they understand that, they would be able to catch or get a hand on what the person is speaking. Yes, the first 2 or 3 times would be harder, but It's achievable. It's doable. You know, the younger ones can listen to more English stories.
Right.
You know, like me as a teacher, I would love to animate my stories for children, you know, and they sometimes they like just watching me how I animate it.
Yeah.
They probably don't understand what's happening, but the visuals or the pictures on the storybook explains it. And doing that again, they catch what the story has. Oh, so it's a caterpillar, you know, that's a butterfly, and that's the sun and the moon, and that's a strawberry. So they understand that. But the more I do it, the more I reinforce, the better it gets. But listening is the key. More speaking.
I say that, and I watch people who come to the show and they're sometimes writing or they're doing something. Oh, it's not my turn. I can do this. And I stop them and I say, no, you should be listening.
Yes.
You never know if I'm going to ask you. But sometimes do you find that people don't even understand what it is meant when you say, I need you to listen?
Yes, they don't understand that. Again, like Carla, culture plays a major role here. I can't say this in Urdu to my students that, you know, what I said it in English. And I think once you understand the language they speak, that is where you understand, oh, this, they don't have the understanding that they have to be told to do this. I find that culture plays a major role.
Yeah.
And we might say things differently, but they say the same thing very differently.
Yeah.
So back to us again. We as instructors got to be more aware of how we're instructing them. And having said that, I feel that shouldn't stop us from asking them to listen to us more, but reinforcing it again and again will definitely get them, but a positive reinforcement where they feel encouraged, heard. However they try, it's not right or wrong, but they have made the effort and appreciated for what they've done.
Okay. Do you have anything else you would like our audience to take away from this time that we've spent together?
I would like to say this, Carla, that learning a new language is not a privilege only, but it is what we need to do for ourselves. When we learn something different, you just enhance your thinking capability, you work on it, and I think language explains a lot of about someone's culture. It speaks about their culture. So let's begin 2022 with learning a new language. And the more we know, the more we understand how it works for different people. And as me being an English language instructor, I feel like the more I know about my students, it helps me teach them. It helps me teach them, you know, how to basically teach what they're here for.
Okay.
That's all I have to say.
And having said that, I want to thank you so much for taking your time and speaking with me today. And I hope we get a chance to speak again.
We sure will. Thank you so much, Carla.
Thank you so much. And I want to remind everyone that this show is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which promotes peace from one conversation at a time. And with that, can we wave goodbye? Wave goodbye, and we are going off air.